So for this first one, they're asking us to find the value of x. So here we first identify the big arc, and we're going to call it our small arc. And so then we're going to set up our equation. So we have 7x minus 1 is equal to half of the big arc, which is 161, minus the small arc, which is 65, and then we're going to simplify from there. So on the left side, 7x minus 1, we haven't done nothing with that. We're going to combine like terms inside the parentheses. So 161 minus 65 gives us 96. We're going to take half of that. So half of 96 is 48. Add 1 to both sides, and we got 49. And so then divide both sides by 7, and we get x to be 7. So for the second problem, they're asking us to find the arc measure of SUV. Arc measure of SUV is over here. So what we have to do first is find the arc measure of SV. And so to do that, we have to figure out what is the value of x. So they're giving us two things. They're giving us angle TSV, which is that angle in there right there. And they're giving that to us in terms of x, which is 6x plus 17. The second thing that they're giving us is they're giving us our arc measure SV in terms of x as well, and that's 15x plus 13. And so what we have to remember here is that we'll call it the inscribed angle. So this angle here is going to equal half of the arc that it creates. So we're going to set up our equation. So we have 6x plus 17 is equal to half of that arc, which is 15x plus 13. Once again, if you can take half of each one, take half of each one. In this case, we can't take really half of 13 or half of 15 without dealing either with another fraction or with decimals. So the best thing is we're going to get rid of that the 1/2 and multiplying by 2 on both sides. Now we have to be a little bit careful because on the left side we have a polynomial, right? We have a 2. So the left side we have to be a little bit careful because we have two things, right? So the left side is not just the 6x, it's not just the 17, it's actually both of those together. So we're going to use parentheses to remind us that we have to distribute that 2 to both of those inside. So when we do distribute it, we end up with 12x plus 34, and on the right side we end up with 15x plus 13. And so from here, all we're trying to do is we eventually solve for x, right? So the next step is subtract 12x from both sides, and we're going to go ahead and subtract 13 from both sides, and that's going to leave us with, on the left side we have 21, on the right side we have 3x, divide both sides by 3, and we get x to be 7. Once we know that x is equal to 7, then we simply substitute it back in for x to get the arc measure of SV, so that we can subtract that arc measure from 360 and get our answer. And so here the arc measure of SV is going to equal to 15 times 7, or 15x plus 13, and so that's going to be 105 plus 13, or we get that the measure of arc SV is going to equal to 118. Once we know that's 118, so 118, then we can subtract that from 360, and that's going to give us our measure. So here we get 360 minus 118, and that's going to give us the measure of arc SUV, which is 242 degrees. All right, so looking at this last one, it says if DA, so here and here. So looking at the last one, they're giving us this big arc, call it big arc, and that's going to equal to 23x minus 14. And then we also have the small arc, and that's given to us as 9x minus 4. And then they're also giving us the actual angle of the outside, so angle DCB, and that's given to us as 5x plus 11. And it wants us to find the arc measure of DA, so which is this one over here, which is my big arc. So in order for me to do this, I got to find x, right? So that's kind of our goal. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our equation exactly how we've been doing. So we got 5x plus 11 is equal to half of the big arc, which in this case is 23x minus 14, minus the small arc. Now here we have to be a little bit careful because that small arc is actually giving us to us with two variables. So we have 9x minus 4 close parentheses, right? It's not just the 9x, it's not just the negative 4. We have to be careful. And the reason we have to be careful is because we do have a negative in front there that we need to distribute to both of those. So when we distribute it, on the left side we haven't touched it, so it stays as 5x plus 11. And then on the right side, I'm leaving the 1/2, I'm leaving the 23x minus 14, but now it changes to minus 9x plus 4. And so once I do that, I can go ahead and combine like terms inside my parentheses. So we have 23x minus 9x, and then we also have this negative 14 plus 4. And so once I do that, on the left side I still haven't changed it, so it's still 5x plus 11. On the right side I'm going to take half of, so 23 minus 9 gives me 14x. Negative 14 plus 4 gives me negative 10. Now remember when I said if you can take half of each one. So in this case we are able to take half of each one. So we have 5x plus 11 is equal to 7x minus 5, right? Because if I were to distribute that 1/2 to both of those two, then that's kind of where I'm at. So from here, we're still solving for x. So we're going to subtract 5x from both sides, and we're going to add 5 to both sides. So we got 16 is equal to 2x, and we end up with x being 8. Once we know that x is 8, we simply substitute it back in there to find the arc measure of that big arc. So here I'm going to get that the measure of arc DA is equal to whatever 23 times 8 minus 14 is. And so the measure of arc DA, so 23 times 8 minus 14 is going to be 170 degrees for my final answer.